I live alone in a small duplex about 20 minutes outside of town. It's not the middle of nowhere, but it's quiet. Most of the people on my street are older, retired types who keep to themselves. I work late hours at a local restaurant, so I usually don't get home until after midnight, which suits me fine. I've always been a bit of a night owl. This happened just a few months ago in January. It was a Thursday, and I remember that because Thursdays are usually dead at the restaurant. I got off a little earlier than usual, around 11:30 p.m., drove home, and got inside just before midnight. It had snowed earlier that day, so the whole neighborhood was dead silent and covered in that soft, sound-muffling white. I remember standing on my porch for a second before going in, just listening to the stillness. It was peaceful. Inside, I did what I always do, kicked off my boots, locked the door behind me, and turned the deadbolt. I'm a little paranoid, so I always double-check it. I even pulled on the handle twice to make sure it was sealed. Then I went about my normal routine. Quick shower, leftover pasta from the fridge, a couple episodes of something dumb on Netflix. I was in bed by around 2 a.m. I sleep with my bedroom door closed and locked. It's just a habit from when I used to live with roommates. That night, I remember having a weird dream, something about someone knocking at my door over and over again, soft knocks that got more and more urgent, but I couldn't move to answer. Then I suddenly woke up. The room was cold, like, noticeably colder than it should have been. At first, I thought maybe the heater had shut off, or I'd left a window cracked. Still half asleep, I grabbed my phone to check the time. It was 3:12 a.m. That's when I noticed the notification, 3 new photos added to your camera roll. That got my attention fast. I swiped over to the Photos app. My heart jumped into my throat. There were 3 pictures, all taken within the last 5 minutes. All of them were of me, in bed, asleep. The first photo was from the foot of the bed, a little blurry but unmistakable. I was laying on my side, my face partially visible in the glow of my nightlight. The second was from the side of the bed, closer. You could see more of my face and part of my arm sticking out from the blanket. The third one was the worst. It was taken from right above me, like whoever took it was standing directly over my head. My mouth was slightly open. I looked completely unaware, helpless. I jumped out of bed so fast I nearly fell over. I still had the phone in my hand, shaking. I didn't even grab a weapon. I just unlocked my bedroom door and sprinted through the house, yelling like an idiot. Every room was empty. The windows were locked. Nothing seemed out of place. Then I got to the front door. It was wide open, not just unlocked. The deadbolt was turned, and the door itself was swung open into the freezing night. Snow had blown in a few inches, melting into a wet patch on the doormat. I ran to it, stepped out onto the porch, and looked around. Nothing. The street was dead. No footprints in the snow, either, at least none that looked fresh. The only ones I could see were mine from when I came home earlier. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and pushed my little bookshelf in front of it. Then I went back into the living room and sat there on the couch, phone in hand, just staring at those pictures. I deleted them. I don't know why. Maybe part of me thought if I deleted them, it would undo what happened. But they were real. I even went into my phone settings and checked the EXIF data on the images. All 3 were taken between 3:04 and 3:07 a.m. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat up with a kitchen knife and every light in the house on until the sun came up. I called the police around 7. They were polite, but not much help. The officers did a walkthrough, took a statement, and told me there wasn't much they could do since nothing had actually been stolen. When I showed them the door was open, and the photos, they got a little more serious, but still, without a suspect, there wasn't much to investigate. They asked if I had any exes or enemies who might want to mess with me. I didn't. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints except mine. They suggested maybe I left the door open and took the pictures myself in my sleep, like some kind of fugue state. I know that's not what happened. I remember locking the door. I remember double-checking it. And I don't sleepwalk. I've never had anything like that happen before. For a while after that, I didn't feel safe in my own house. I barely slept. I started carrying a knife with me from room to room. I even bought a little indoor security camera and aimed it at my bedroom door. And for a while, nothing happened. But then, about 2 weeks later, I got another notification on my phone at 3:18 a.m. 1 new photo added to your camera roll. I was already awake. I don't really sleep much anymore. I opened it. This time, the photo was of the hallway, just outside my locked bedroom door. And this time, whoever took it left something behind. I found it the next morning, tucked neatly into the space between the doormat and the floor. A single black and white photo. An old Polaroid. It was of me, taken from across the street. Through my bedroom window. Story 2. I got a call from my landline. While I was home alone. I live in a small apartment, nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom on the 3rd floor of an older building. I've been here for about 2 years now, and nothing really weird ever happened until last month. For context, I don't even use my landline. It came with the apartment, part of some outdated package deal. I don't know anyone who has the number, and honestly, I only keep it plugged in because my landlord said it was tied to the intercom system downstairs. It was a Saturday night, around 11 p.m. I was home alone, just scrolling through my phone and watching TV. The kind of night where you're half zoned out, enjoying the quiet. That's when the landline rang. It startled me because, like I said, it never rings. I figured maybe it was the landlord or some kind of automated call, so I got up and answered. But when I picked it up, no one said anything. At first, I thought it was a prank or a wrong number. I said hello a couple of times, but all I could hear was this faint static. Then, just as I was about to hang up, I heard something that made my skin crawl. It was my own voice. Very faint, like an echo. I heard myself say hello. Exactly how I'd just said it a second ago. Then silence again. I hung up, feeling weirded out, but trying to brush it off. Maybe some kind of feedback glitch, I thought. I went back to the couch and tried to forget about it. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my service provider. Missed call from your landline number. That made me freeze. How could I miss a call from my landline when I was sitting right next to it? I looked over at the phone. It was silent. No missed call logs, nothing. But my cell clearly showed a missed call from my own apartment number, timestamped just a minute ago. I tried calling it back out of curiosity, but it went straight to that generic disconnected tone. I was starting to get this heavy feeling in my chest, like something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I told myself it was probably just some technical glitch, maybe crossed wires or whatever happens in old buildings. About an hour later, I was getting ready for bed when I heard the landline ring again. This time, I didn't answer. I just stood there in the hallway, staring at it. It rang exactly 4 times, then stopped. A few seconds later, my cell buzzed again, voicemail received. That didn't make sense either, because my landline didn't have voicemail set up. But sure enough, when I checked, there was a new message waiting. I put it on speaker. At first, it was just static. Then I heard breathing. Slow, deliberate breathing. After about 10 seconds, I heard a voice whisper something. It was hard to make out, but it sounded like, "Why won't you answer?" I felt sick. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear the rest of the message. But right before it cut off, there was one more sound. A soft creak. Like a door hinge. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my bedroom with a kitchen knife, every light on, and my back to the wall. I kept telling myself I'd call someone in the morning, maybe get the landlord to check the wiring, or just disconnect the phone entirely. But around 3 a.m., something happened that I still can't explain. I heard my own voice again. Not through the phone this time. It was coming from the living room. I could hear it, clear as day, saying, "Hello? Who is this?" The exact way I had when I first answered the call earlier that night. I felt this wave of absolute dread wash over me. I didn't want to leave my room, but I couldn't just sit there either. I grabbed the knife tighter and slowly opened my bedroom door. The apartment was dark, except for the glow of the TV I'd left on mute. I crept down the hallway, every instinct in me screaming to run the other way. When I reached the living room, I saw the landline phone sitting on the table, just like before. But the line was off the hook. The phone was resting on the table with the receiver laid beside it, like someone had just used it. I stood there, frozen, listening. That's when I noticed the balcony door. It was open about an inch. I know for a fact I hadn't opened it. It was the middle of winter, and I never used the balcony anyway. I walked over slowly, every step feeling heavier than the last. When I got to the door, I could see that the lock had been forced, scratches around the latch, like someone had pried it open from the outside. I stepped out onto the balcony and looked around. 3rd floor, no fire escape, no ladder. Just an old drain pipe running down the side of the building. But in the thin layer of snow on the balcony floor, there were footprints. Bare footprints. They led from the edge of the balcony to the door, and then, nothing. No return prints. Like whoever it was had come up, walked inside, but never left. I backed into the apartment, locked the balcony door as best I could, and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the whole building but found nothing. They told me it was probably a break-in, that someone had climbed up, messed with me, and left before I noticed. But they couldn't explain how someone could climb down without leaving a single mark or print. I disconnected the landline the next day. But here's the part that still keeps me up. Last week, I was going through my phone settings, clearing out old voicemails I'd saved. I'd forgotten about that creepy message from that night, so I played it again. This time, I heard something I hadn't noticed before. Right after the whisper, "Why won't you answer?" there's a faint sound in the background. I played it over and over, turning the volume up as high as it would go. It was my voice, whispering back, "I'm already inside." Story 3. My neighbor's lights have been on for days, but he's not home. I've lived in the same apartment building for about 3 years now. It's one of those older complexes where everyone kind of keeps to themselves. People come and go, but there's always been this unspoken rule of minding your own business. I liked it that way until I noticed something strange about the guy who lived across the hall from me. His name was Mr. Delaney. Quiet, probably in his late 50s, always wore the same gray hoodie when I'd see him checking his mail or leaving for work. We never really talked beyond the occasional nod or evening. He didn't have visitors, no loud music, nothing. The perfect neighbor, honestly. But about 2 weeks ago, I noticed that the light in his apartment window was on when I got home late from work. I didn't think much of it at first. People leave lights on. But then, the next night, it was still on. Same dim, yellow glow from the living room window. By the third night, it caught my attention. His blinds were half open, and I could see into part of his living room from the parking lot. It looked exactly the same as always, no movement, no shadows, just that one lamp on near the window. The weird part was, I hadn't seen Mr. Delaney at all during those days. Usually, I'd at least hear his door or see him heading out in the mornings. But nothing. After about 5 days of seeing that light on constantly, I started to wonder if something had happened to him. I mean, people live alone and have accidents, right? I debated knocking on his door but felt awkward about it. What if he was fine and thought I was nosy? It was the 6th night when things got unsettling. I was coming up the stairs when I noticed his door was slightly ajar. Just barely, like it hadn't latched properly. That wasn't normal for him. He was the kind of guy who always locked up. I stood there for a minute, staring at the gap. I didn't hear anything inside. No TV, no footsteps, just silence. I told myself I'd knock, check if he was okay, and if there was no answer, I'd call someone. So I reached out and tapped on the door. It slowly creaked open from the pressure. I called out, "Mr. Delaney? You all right?" No response. I should have left it at that. I should have backed away and called the landlord or something. But curiosity got the better of me. I pushed the door open wider and peeked inside. His apartment looked off. It was too clean, like no one had lived there for weeks. No shoes by the door, no coat on the hook where he always kept that gray hoodie. The only thing that stood out was that lamp by the window, casting the same dull light across the empty room. I stepped inside, just enough to call out again. "Mr. Delaney?" That's when I noticed the smell. It wasn't what I expected, not the smell of rot or anything like that. It was more like dust. Stale, old air. Like the place had been sealed up for a long time. I took another step in, feeling this growing sense of unease. The living room was completely bare except for the couch, the lamp, and a small table. No personal items. No photos. It didn't feel lived in at all. Then I heard something. A soft creaking noise coming from down the hallway that led to his bedroom. I froze. Every instinct told me to get out, but I couldn't stop staring down that dark hallway. "Mr. Delaney?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The creaking stopped. I backed up toward the door, heart pounding in my ears. As I turned to leave, my eyes caught something on the small table next to the couch. It was a stack of mail, all of it unopened. The envelope on top had a date from over a month ago. That didn't make sense. I'd seen Mr. Delaney checking his mail just a couple of weeks back. I stepped closer to get a better look, and that's when I saw it. Propped up against the lamp base was a photograph. It was a picture of the hallway, the one right outside my apartment. And standing in front of my door, in the photo, was me. Same jacket I was wearing that night, same bag slung over my shoulder. It was taken from behind, like someone had been watching me come home. I felt a chill run down my spine. I didn't hear anyone behind me, but I had this overwhelming feeling that I wasn't alone in that apartment. I left. Fast. I shut the door behind me and didn't look back. I went straight to my place, locked every lock I had, and just stood there, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. Later that night, I called the landlord and told him something was wrong in Delaney's apartment. He seemed confused and told me that unit had been vacant for over a month. Mr. Delaney had moved out unexpectedly without leaving much behind. I didn't sleep that night. The next evening, when I got home, I glanced up at his window like I always did. The light was still on, but now the blinds were completely open, and taped to the inside of the window was a new photograph. Even from the parking lot, I could tell what it was. It was a picture of me, taken from inside his apartment, looking out at where I was standing.